The great hall was very quiet. It was always quiet when the assembly began. But today, the silence felt different. It felt heavy. It felt old. The hall was called Station Orion 7, and it floated in the dark space between three galaxies. It was the biggest building ever made by living beings. Inside, there were exactly 4,847 seats. Each seat belonged to a different species. Each seat had a glowing symbol above it. The symbol showed who owned that seat. The Villani had a crystal spiral. The Draxian Collective had a burning sun. The Mori Republic had 3 small moons. Every species in the known universe had their symbol floating above their chair, but one chair had no light. One chair sat dark and empty. It was in the 3rd row, between the Villani and the Mori. The chair was not broken. It was not old. It looked like all the other chairs. But no one had sat in it for 200 years. On the back of this chair, there was a small carving. It showed a little blue ball. A planet. Earth. This was the human chair. Old Tail of the Villani looked at that chair every time the assembly met. He had been looking at it for 2 centuries now. He was 847 years old, which was very old even for his kind. His body was made of living crystal, and parts of him had started to crack with age. But his eyes still worked well. His memory was still sharp. He remembered the humans. They had been strange creatures. Soft bodies. Short lives. They lived for only 80 or 90 years, which was nothing. A Villani child was older than that. But the humans had not acted like creatures with short lives. They had not been humble. They had not been afraid. Tail remembered the first time humans came to the assembly. They had walked in like they owned the place. They had asked questions. So many questions. They wanted to know everything. Why was this law made? Who decided that rule? What happened if someone broke the agreement? They never stopped asking. The other species had been annoyed at first. The Draxians had been angry. The Draxian warlord Imperius, a giant creature covered in red scales, had stood up and pointed at the small human group. "You are new here," Imperius had said. His voice had shaken the walls. "You are weak. You are small. You will show respect, or we will teach you respect. We will burn your little planet. We will end your little species. This is not a threat. This is a fact." The other species had nodded. This was how things worked. The strong ruled. The weak obeyed. The humans would learn or they would die. It was simple, but the human leader had not looked afraid. She was a small woman with black hair and dark eyes. Her name was Park Jisoo. She had looked up at the massive Draxian warlord, and she had laughed. She had laughed at Imperius. "You can try," she had said. Just those 3 words. Then she had sat down. Imperius had been so shocked that he could not speak. No one had ever laughed at him. No one had ever spoken to him like that. He had ordered his fleet to go to Earth, 40,000 warships. The largest attack force ever assembled. 3 days later, they were gone. Not defeated. Not destroyed. Gone. Every single ship had disappeared. No wreckage. No signals. No survivors. 40,000 warships with millions of soldiers had simply stopped existing. The humans never said what happened. When asked, Park Jisoo had just smiled and changed the subject. She asked about trade routes. She asked about cultural exchange programs. She acted like nothing had happened, but everyone knew. Everyone remembered. The Draxians never threatened humans again. No one did. For 300 years, humans had sat in that chair. They had argued and debated and asked their endless questions. They had protected smaller species from bigger ones. They had stopped wars before they started. They had never asked for anything in return. They had never built an empire. They had never demanded tribute. They had just been there, watching, helping, keeping the peace. And then, 200 years ago, they had vanished. It happened in one night. Every human, everywhere, was gone. Their colonies were empty. Their ships floated dead in space. Their planets were quiet. Billions of humans had simply disappeared. The assembly had sent investigators. They have found nothing. No bodies, no messages, no clues. The humans had left their food on their tables. They had left their clothes in their closets. They had left their pets and their plants. They had left everything except themselves. Some species thought it was a trick. Some thought it was a disease. Some thought the humans had finally shown their true nature and had fled to some secret place to plot their return. But years passed. Then decades. Then centuries. The humans did not come back. The galaxy changed without them. The Draxians started the Third Expansion War. Without humans to stop them, they attacked everyone. 47 star systems fell. Billions died. Whole species were destroyed. The war lasted 60 years. When it finally ended, the Draxians ruled a quarter of known space. Other wars followed. The Mori lost half their Tori. The Villani were pushed to the edges of the galaxy. Small species were eaten by big ones. The strong took what they wanted. The weak suffered. Old Tail thought about this as he looked at the empty chair. He remembered what the galaxy had been like when humans were here. It had not been perfect, but it had been better. There had been hope. Now there was only the empty chair. The dark symbol. The silence where human voices used to be. The assembly session was about to begin. A new crisis was coming. Something terrible was approaching from beyond the galaxy. Something that would kill them all. And the human chair was still empty. Tail closed his crystal eyes and wished. As he had wished for 200 years that the humans would come back, he did not know that his wish was about to come true. Kong Yuna had learned to hide before she could walk. Her mother had taught her. Her grandmother had taught her mother. For 3 generations, the women of her family had learned the same lessons. Do not stand out. Do not show what you are. Do not let anyone see your blood, because Kang Yuna was human, and humans did not exist anymore. She lived on a small moon called Varus 4. It was a mining colony, dirty and cold and poor. The people there were mostly Mori, gentle creatures with soft fur and kind eyes. They had accepted Yuna's grandmother when she arrived 70 years ago. They thought she was a hybrid, a mix of human and something else. Such things had existed before the humans vanished. It was not strange. They did not know the truth. They did not know that Yuna's grandmother had been born on Mars, had been frozen in a secret room, had been the last pure human in known space. Yuna was 23 years old now. She worked in the mines during the day. She fixed machines, cleaned tunnels, did whatever work she could find. At night, she went home to her small room and she studied. Her grandmother had left her many things. Old books, old recordings, old memories. Before she died, she had made Yuna promise to learn everything. The history, the language, the stories, everything that made humans who they were. One day, her grandmother had said, her voice weak and tired, "You will need this. One day, you will understand why." Yuna had not understood then. She was only 16 when her grandmother died. But she had kept her promise. Every night, she studied. She learned about Earth, the blue planet she had never seen. She learned about the wars humans had fought, the peace they had built, the questions they had asked. She learned about Park Jisoo and the laughing diplomats and the vanishing. She learned what humans had been to the galaxy. And she learned what the galaxy had become without them. The new screens in the mining colony were old and broken, but they still worked. Yuna watched them every day. She saw the reports about the Draxian demands. She saw the stories about the Mori refugees. She saw the pictures of destroyed planets and burning ships. And now she saw the new reports. The ones that made everyone afraid. The Void Collective. No one knew where they came from. They appeared at the edge of the galaxy 6 months ago. They were machines, but not like any machines the galaxy had seen before. They did not talk. They did not negotiate. They did not conquer. They consumed. Their ships were black and cold and endless. They moved through space like a dark wave. Every planet they touched became empty. Every species they found became nothing. They ate matter and energy and life. They left only silence. The outer territories were already gone. 15 star systems had fallen. 20 species had been destroyed. The Void Collective was coming closer every day. The assembly was meeting to discuss what to do. But Una knew what would happen. She had watched enough assembly meetings on the news screens. The Draxians would demand tribute. The Villani would counsel retreat. The Mori would beg for help. No one would agree on anything. They had forgotten how to stand together. They had forgotten what unity meant. Una turned off the screen and sat in the darkness of her room. Around her neck, she wore her grandmother's pendant. It was a small thing, a blue marble on a silver chain. Her grandmother had worn it every day of her life. She had told Una that it was important, that it meant something, but she had never explained what. Tonight, in the darkness, Una finally understood. The pendant was Earth, the little blue planet, the home of humans. Her grandmother had carried Earth with her for 70 years, waiting for the day when someone would need it again. That day had come. Una did not know what she could do. She was one person. She had no army, no weapons, no power. She was a miner on a poor moon in a forgotten corner of space. What could she do against the Void Collective? What could she do against the fear and greed of 1,000 species? But her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Humans never asked if they could do something, the old woman had said. They just did it. They were too stupid to know what was impossible. That was their secret. They never stopped trying. Una smiled in the darkness. It was a sad smile, but it was real. She stood up. She packed a small bag with clothes and food. She took her grandmother's books, the ones that could not be replaced. She took the pendant and held it tight. Then she walked out of her room, out of the mining colony, and into the cold night of VERIS-4. She did not know how she would get to Station Orion 7. She did not know what she would do when she arrived. She only knew that she had to try. The galaxy needed to remember what humans were. The galaxy needed to see that hope was not dead. It took her 3 weeks to reach the station. She stowed away on cargo ships. She bribed dock workers. She hid in maintenance tunnels and slept in storage rooms. She was hungry and tired and scared, but she did not stop. When she finally reached Orion 7, the assembly was in session. She could hear the shouting through the walls. The Draxians were angry. The Villani were singing their death songs. The Mori were crying. Everything was falling apart. Una stood in a service corridor, looking through a small window at the Great Hall. She saw the 4,847 seats. She saw the glowing symbols. She saw the chaos and the fear, and she saw the empty chair, the dark symbol, the little blue marble carved into the back, her chair, her people's chair. She took a deep breath. She touched the pendant around her neck. She thought about her grandmother, her mother, Park Jisu, and all the humans who had come before. Then she walked toward the doors. It was time to remind the galaxy what humanity meant. The doors of the assembly hall were very old and very heavy. They were made of metal from a dead star. They were designed to last forever. They had never been opened by a single person before. Una pushed them open with her bare hands. The sound echoed through the great hall like thunder. 4,000 species stopped shouting. 4,000 species turned to look. 4,000 species saw a small woman standing alone in the doorway. She was dirty from her journey. Her clothes were worn and simple. She had no guards, no weapons, no symbols of power. She looked like nothing. She looked like no one, but she walked forward like she owned the room. The Draxian delegation was closest to the door. High Counselor Veth, a massive creature with scales the color of blood, rose from his seat. He was the grandson of Imperius, the warlord who had threatened humanity 200 years ago. He had never seen a human. He had only heard stories. "What is this?" Veth demanded. His voice was like rocks grinding together. Who allowed this creature inside? "Guards!" Una stopped walking. She looked up at Veth. He was 3 times her size. His claws could cut through metal. His teeth could crush bones. He had killed thousands of enemies with his own hands. She was not afraid. "Sit down," she said. Her voice was quiet. It was calm. It was the same tone Park Jisu had used 200 years ago when she laughed at Veth's grandfather. It was the tone of someone who did not need to shout, because they already knew they would be obeyed. Veth felt something cold in his chest, something he had never felt before. It was fear, not the fear of death or pain. It was older than that. It was the fear his species had carried in their blood for 2 centuries, passed down from generation to generation. The fear of humans. He sat down. The hall was completely silent now. Every eye watched Una as she walked forward. She passed the Villani, who stared at her with their glowing crystal eyes. She passed the Mori, who had stopped crying for the first time in hours. She passed species she had only read about in her grandmother's books. None of them spoke. None of them moved. She reached the 3rd row and stopped in front of the empty chair. For a long moment, she just stood there, looking at it. Her hand reached out and touched the carving on the back. The little blue marble. Earth. Then she sat down. The moment she touched the seat, something happened. The holographic systems above the chair, dead for 200 years, flickered to life. Blue light burst from the symbol. Earth's image appeared above her head, spinning slowly. Bright and beautiful. But that was not all. Across the galaxy, things began to change. On a dead station floating in empty space, lights turned on for the first time in 2 centuries. Machines started humming. Doors opened. Systems activated. In the dark space between galaxies, enormous ships began to move. They had been waiting there, silent and patient, for 200 years. Now they powered up their engines. Now they pointed toward home. On 100 hidden moons and secret bases and forgotten outposts, alarms sounded. People woke up from long sleep. Soldiers grabbed their weapons. Pilots ran to their ships. Humanity was waking up. Back in the assembly hall, the symbol above Una's head grew brighter. Data began scrolling across holographic screens. Images appeared. Ships, weapons, armies, plans. Everything humanity had built in 2 centuries of hiding. The assembly watched in shock. They saw things they could not understand. Ships that bent light around them. Weapons that folded space. Armor that could stop any attack. Technology centuries beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. And soldiers. Millions of soldiers. Trained. Ready. Waiting. Old Tale of the Villani was the first to speak. His voice cracked with age and emotion. "You," he said. "You are real. Humans are real. You came back." Una looked at him. She saw the hope in his crystal eyes. She saw the same hope spreading across the hall, from species to species, like fire jumping through dry grass. "We never left," she said. "We were watching, waiting, preparing. Preparing for what?" Someone asked. Why Una turned to face the whole assembly. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard. For the Void Collective. We saw them coming. We saw them hundreds of years ago. We knew they would reach the galaxy. We knew you would not be ready. The hall erupted in voices. Questions, demands, accusations. How did you know? Why did you hide? Why did you not warn us? Una raised her hand. The voices stopped. You would not have listened, she said. You know, this is true. When we were here, you took us for granted. When we warned you of dangers, you ignored us. When we tried to unite you, you refused. You were too proud, too afraid, too divided. She stood up from the chair. Her voice grew stronger. So we gave you a lesson. We left you alone. We let you see what the galaxy would become without us. We let you feel the wars and the suffering and the fear. We let you remember what you had lost. The hall was silent. Una's words were harsh, but no one could argue. They remembered the centuries of war. They remembered the suffering. They remembered looking at the empty chair and wishing, praying for the humans to return. Now the Void Collective is coming, Una said. They will reach the inner systems in 18 months. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be bought. They will consume everything unless we stop them. She looked around the hall at the thousands of species watching her. We have the weapons to fight them. We have the soldiers. We have the plans. But we will not save you. We will not fight your war for you. Her voice softened. Her eyes showed something like compassion. We will fight with you, if you choose to stand with us. She sat back down in the human chair. The blue light of Earth glowed above her head. She waited. The galaxy had to decide. The silence after Una's words lasted a very long time. Nobody in the assembly knew what to say. For 200 years, they had dreamed of this moment. They had wished for humans to return, to save them, to make things right. Now a human was here, offering exactly that. But she was also asking them to change. She was asking them to stand together. She was asking them to become something they had forgotten how to be. High Counselor Veth was the first to speak. He stood slowly, his massive body casting a shadow over half the hall. Why should we trust you? He asked. His voice was harsh, but there was something else in it. Something that might have been hope. You abandoned us. You watched while we suffered. You could have helped, and you chose not to. Why should we believe you will help now? Una looked at him without fear. You are right to ask, she said. We did watch. We did let you suffer. It was the hardest thing we ever did. She stood up from the chair. Do you know what humans did for 300 years before we left? We stopped wars. We protected the weak. We kept the peace. We asked for nothing in return. Nothing. Her voice grew stronger. And what did we receive? The Draxians threatened to destroy our world. The Valani refused to share technology with us. The Mori would not let us join their trade networks. Every species took what we offered and gave nothing back. The hall was silent. The species remembered. They knew she was telling the truth. We were tired, Una said. Tired of being used. Tired of being ignored. Tired of protecting people who did not want to be protected. So when we saw the Void Collective coming, we made a choice. She walked to the center of the speaking platform. We could warn you. We could try to unite you. But we knew what would happen. The Draxians would demand to lead. The Valani would refuse to follow. The Mori would try to negotiate with the machines. You would argue and fight and waste time until the void consumed you all. Old Tale of the Valani lowered his crystal head. He knew she was right. He had seen it happen before. So we chose differently, Una continued. We disappeared. We let you feel what the galaxy was like without us. We let you learn the lesson we could not teach you with words. She turned in a slow circle, looking at every delegation. Now, you know what division costs. You know what pride costs. You know what happens when the strong prey on the weak and no one stops them. She stopped turning. Her eyes were bright. The question is, did you learn? Or will you make the same mistakes again? The hall was very quiet. Then, slowly, soft wind through reeds of the Mori stood up. She was small and gentle, with silver fur and large dark eyes. Her voice was soft, but everyone could hear her. My people have lost much, she said. We lost our homes. We lost our families. We lost our hope. For 200 years, we have been dying slowly. Tears formed in her eyes. I was angry when the humans left. I blamed them for our suffering. But now I understand. We were dying because we forgot how to live together. We forgot how to trust. The humans did not do this to us. We did it to ourselves. She looked at Yuna. I do not know if we deserve a second chance, but I know that my people will stand with you, if you will have us. She sat down. The hall was silent for a moment. Then another delegation stood. Then another. Then another. The Villani pledged their scientists and their technology. The Mori pledged their healers and their ships. Smaller species, ones that had been ignored for centuries, stood and offered what little they had. Finally, only the Draxians remained seated. High Counselor Veth sat very still. His scales were dark with thought. Around him, his advisors whispered, but he did not listen. He was remembering stories his grandmother had told him. Stories about Imperius, the great warlord, who had tried to destroy humanity and had failed. Stories about the fear that had lived in Draxian hearts ever since. For 200 years, his people had been the strongest. They had taken what they wanted. They had conquered and ruled and crushed anyone who resisted. They had been proud of their strength. But now the Void Collective was coming. And the Void was stronger. Veth stood up. The hall fell silent. My people have done terrible things, he said. His voice was low and rough. We have killed. We have conquered. We have made enemies of everyone. He looked at Yuna. Humans stopped us before. You could have destroyed us. You chose not to. I never understood why. My grandfather never understood why. He took a deep breath. Now I think I understand. You were trying to teach us. You were waiting for us to learn. We were too proud to listen. He bowed his head. It was the first time a Draxian High Counselor had ever bowed to anyone. I am listening now, he said. The Draxian Collective will stand with you. We will fight beside you. And when the war is over, we will try to be better. He sat down. The hall was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the noise began. But it was not the noise of arguing. It was the noise of planning, of organizing, of species talking to each other, not as enemies, but as allies. Yuna watched it happen. She felt tears in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. Her grandmother had dreamed of this moment. Her mother had hoped for it. Now it was real, but the war had not started yet. The hard part was still coming. She looked at the delegates making plans and forming alliances. She thought about the Void Collective, cold and endless and hungry. She thought about the millions of soldiers who would die in the coming battle. She thought about the worlds that would burn before this was over. She touched the pendant around her neck. The little blue marble. Earth. We're coming home, she whispered. All of us together. The war for the galaxy was about to begin. The war lasted 7 years. It was the worst war the galaxy had ever seen. The Void Collective was endless. Every time the Alliance destroyed one of their ships, 3 more appeared. Every time they won a battle, they lost another. Every day brought new losses, new deaths, new grief. But for the first time in history, the galaxy fought as one. Draxian warships flew beside Mori medical vessels. Balani scientists worked with human engineers. Species that had been enemies for 1,000 years ate together, slept together, died together. The old hatreds melted away in the fire of shared purpose. Kang Yuna led them. She was not a general or a politician. She had never been trained for war. But she was human, and humans had always known how to inspire others. She flew to every battle. She visited every wounded soldier. She stood on the bridges of dying ships and refused to leave until the last refugee was safe. The soldiers loved her. The civilians worshipped her. Even the Draxians, proud as they were, followed her without question. But war takes everything from everyone. In the 4th year, the Void Collective broke through the inner defenses. They reached the Mori homeworld. 3 billion people lived there. There was no time to evacuate them all. Yuna led the defense herself. She commanded a fleet of 2,000 ships against a Void armada of 10,000. The battle lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Mori homeworld was saved. But Yuna's fleet was destroyed. Only 100 ships survived. Yuna survived too, but she was changed. She had seen too much death. She had sent too many soldiers to die. The light in her eyes was dimmer now. The smile she used to wear was gone, but she kept fighting. That was what humans did. In the 6th year, they found the Void Collective's heart. It was a massive structure in the space between galaxies, bigger than a planet, older than stars. This was where the machines came from. This was what they had to destroy. The final battle was terrible. Every ship the Alliance had left gathered for the attack. Human vessels with their strange weapons. Draxian warships with their massive guns. Balani science ships with their shields of light. Mori medical frigates, ready to save whoever they could. And leading them all, Kang Yuna. The battle lasted 18 hours. Ships died by the thousands. The void structure fought back with weapons no one had ever seen. Soldiers screamed and burned and vanished into the dark, but slowly, impossibly, the Alliance pushed forward. In the final hour, Yuna made a choice. The void structure had one weak point, a small opening in its defenses. A single ship could fly through and destroy the core. But the ship would not survive. The pilot would not come back. She did not ask for volunteers. She flew herself. Her ship was small and fast. She dodged the void weapons. She slipped through their defenses. She reached the core just as her shields failed and her engines died. She had one moment left. One chance. She thought about her grandmother, who had carried Earth in a pendant for 70 years. She thought about her mother, who had died before Yuna could know her. She thought about Park Jisoo, laughing at a Draxian warlord. She thought about every human who had ever lived and died and hoped. "This is for all of you," she whispered. She pressed the button. The void structure exploded. The shock wave destroyed every void ship in the system. The machines fell silent. The war was over. Kang Yuna died in the fire. The galaxy mourned her for a year. Every species, every world, every being who had survived the war remembered her name. The Draxians built a monument on their homeworld, the first time they had ever honored an outsider. The Vallani composed songs about her that would be sung for centuries. The Mori named their children after her, but the galaxy did not stop. That was not what Yuna would have wanted. The assembly met again 1 year after the war ended. The hall on Station Orion 7 was repaired now, cleaned and rebuilt after the battles. The 4,847 seats were filled once more. The symbols glowed above each delegation, and the human chair was not empty. A man sat there now. His name was Sho Minho. He was 40 years old, with tired eyes and gentle hands. He had fought in the war from the beginning. He had lost his family in the first attacks. He had found a new family in the Alliance. In the soldiers and healers and scientists who had become his brothers and sisters, Yuna had chosen him to take her place. Before the final battle, she had given him her pendant. The little blue marble. He wore it now, around his neck. As he sat in the human chair for the first time, the first motion of the new session was proposed by Swiftstrike, the new leader of the Draxian Collective. He was young, barely 30 years old. He had served under human command during the war. He had learned to respect them in a way his ancestors never had. "I propose," he said, "that the seat of Earth be moved to the center of this assembly. Not above us, not ruling us, but among us, equal, always." The motion passed without a single vote against it. Workers came to move the chair. They carried it from the third row to the very center of the speaking platform, where everyone could see it. The symbol of Earth glowed above it. Bright and beautiful Cho Minho sat in the chair and looked around at the assembly. He saw Villani and Draxians and Mori and 100 other species. He saw beings who had been enemies for 1,000 years, now working together. He saw hope. 200 years ago, he said, his voice quiet but clear, "My people left this hall. We thought you needed to learn what life was like without us. Maybe we were right. Maybe we were wrong. It doesn't matter now." He touched the pendant around his neck. Yuna's pendant. Earth. What matters is that we're here now. All of us. Together. We fought together. We bled together. We won together. He stood up from the chair. Tang Yuna gave her life for this moment. She believed that we could be better. She believed that we could build something new. Something stronger than any one species. Something that would last forever. He looked at every delegation in turn. Let's prove her right. The assembly did not cheer. They did not clap. They simply nodded, quietly, seriously. They understood. The war had taught them. Yuna had taught them. The galaxy was different now. It would never go back to what it was before, and the human chair would never be empty again. Outside the hall, through the great windows, the stars burned bright. Somewhere out there, on 100 worlds, humans were coming home. They were leaving their hidden bases and secret stations. They were returning to the galaxy they had protected for so long. But this time, they were not alone. This time, they were part of something bigger, something better. This time, they were family.